Welcome to the bonus episode of the Co-Recursive Podcast. I am, as always, Adam Gordon Bell. Okay, so I'm in the backyard of a house that several days before I had never been into before. And it's sunny out, and laying on the grass, I have a hammer, and I have like a punch chisel set, and I have a crowbar. And I'm trying to break in. I'm trying to break in to the garage, which just has a garage door that comes down and a window. And the window is my way to get in, right? It's hot out. I'm very tired. But I'm using the chisel, and I'm trying to get an angle on these hinges on the window and hammer the pin out of them so that I can get the window out. Eventually, I do succeed. I mean, the hinges are super old. The garage is super old, and they've been painted over, and they don't want to come loose. And also, the frame is in the way of the hinges and hammering them. So it becomes a super challenging task. And I actually just tried the pry bar a couple times, but almost break the window. But I keep going, and I slowly hammer at the hinges, and I manage to get one of them out. I only bend one of the punches in the process, and then I can get this old window off of this garage. And behind the window, there are bars. And one of the bars I managed to get out using the crowbar and pull myself through the window and into the garage. This happened last Friday. And this was my dad's house. Monday or Tuesday, I got contacted because we found a place for my dad at a retirement home, and you only have like 24 hours or so to accept it. And my dad has Parkinson's, and he's struggling with living on his own. And so we were excited. And when I say we, I mean, it's just me and my wife, and my dad lives in Windsor. He lives like some ways away. So I take the time off work, and I drive down there, and Wednesday I start, moving him into the retirement home with his help and getting him all set up and getting the stuff he needs. And then we're also trying to sell his house. It's already listed, and there's people seeing it, but it also just has a lot of his stuff in it. And we're trying to sort through. And I say we, I don't know why I keep saying that. It was just me. I rented a car, I took time off work, and I drove down to Windsor, which is like a 5-hour drive. And then I just started sorting through his stuff, what goes to his new place, what we need to throw out, what we need to put into storage. And I had to find a storage place. And then I just had to spend time with him and make sure he was okay with the retirement home and try to make sure he was happy. There's a lot of stuff to do all at once. And there were long days, and I was staying at a hotel in town. It was hard in some ways. It was a hard thing to do. Like just a lot going on at once. But I succeeded, and I managed to get a lot of the stuff sorted and into a storage place and get the stuff that my dad wanted to his retirement home and get him set up. And then the realtor, so by this time it had been days of just really, really long days between, trying to get my dad set up, trying to get the house set up, and trying to sort through his stuff. And it was Friday, and it was like 1:00, and I was ready to start heading back to Peterborough. I was exhausted, really. And I got a message from the realtor saying that we had an offer come in the house, which was great, but they needed access to the garage, right? And we couldn't find the garage door opener, and there's no door on the garage, and we couldn't get in. And my plan had been to hire a locksmith or something, because when I went to the internet and tried to find ways in to a garage, that was what was suggested. Just, you need a locksmith. If you can't get access to the interior, what are you going to do? I asked ChatGPT. Yeah, it didn't have many suggestions. Hire a professional. But then the realtor contacted me as I was about to head home and said, listen, they want to do the inspection tomorrow, and they need access to the garage. There's no way I can get a locksmith in this amount of time. And so I remembered that the window had these hinges on it. And I turned myself around, right? Instead of heading back onto the 401, onto the highway to head back to Peterborough, I drove to Home Depot, and I got a hammer, and I got this punch kit, and I already had a crowbar, and I started hammering on this window. And yeah, eventually I got it open. And it had been a long week, but I felt really good because I had accomplished so much. There was a lot of hard things to do. Moving him, sorting through his stuff, breaking and entering. The world's slowest breaking and entering, by the way. I just had to hammer at this hinge pin forever until it came loose, and I'm surprised none of the neighbors came over to see what is going on. But nobody did. But I felt good on the way back home because I had accomplished so much. I felt like I had all these things that I wanted to do, and I got them almost all done, right? It was a long amount of time, and I was very tired. And it was actually a challenge to keep me awake on the ride home, even though it was kind of the middle of the day. I was just exhausted, But I felt good because I had agency. I had this power to affect change upon the world. I wanted to get my dad a place that he was happy. I wanted to get his house sold. And I managed to make good dents into that. I felt like, I accomplished a lot here. And so that is what I want to talk about today, agency. Agency is so important. And I feel like it's only very recently that I've realized how important it is to me and how important it is to a career. The next co-recursive interview that's coming out is with Amir. And I don't want to say too much about the episode, but the interesting thing is Amir was a fantastic software developer. In his 20s, he was put as team leads on projects that had a lot of people on them that were older. He struggled with this thing where people didn't care, right? Where he was like, here's the good way to do the solution. And then people did it the opposite way. We can put this code in this one place and call it from many places. And then people just copying and pasting code. And then him having to go in and correct things, or needing to fight with people and just feeling frustrated that nobody cared, that he really wanted to do a good job. And he was trying to tell all these people those ways to do a good job, and just they weren't listening. And he just really struggled with this. Why didn't they care, right? Who were these people that when he's like, there's a better way to do it, just do it this way. And then they didn't. And then he would have to go back and change it. I don't want to spoil too much about the story, but that's frustrating, right? And then he worked on open source projects and made some pretty interesting open source projects. And then he couldn't get people at his work to want to use them. They were just not interested. His was clearly better, but it wasn't what they were familiar with. They just wanted to do the things that they knew how to do, And so it led him to be burnt out. And he worked really hard, but I don't think that's why he burnt out. I think it's this agency thing, right? I worked really hard this last week at my getting my dad's life, helping my dad sort out his life. But I got it done, where Amir felt like he was trying so hard and it wasn't working, right? He would ask people to do things and they wouldn't do them. And that is hard, right? When you feel like you can't affect change. Amir knew ways to do software development better, but nobody was listening. That's why I think agency is so important. Agency, just your ability to using your own force of will and your own hands or your own communication to affect change upon the world, is so important. And really, I think, at least if you're like me, has a lot to do with enjoying your job and your life, right? I just think that it's important that when you feel in control of things, right? When you have ownership over things in your life and you feel like the outcome that you have is related to the efforts that you put in, things just feel better. When you don't, right? It can be like the learned helplessness syndrome. It's like, well, it doesn't matter what I do because they're just going to do the code the way they want to do it, right? And you feel like I have no ability to affect things, right? I'm just like a piece of wood floating in the lake. I go up and down with each wave and I cannot change what's happening. Tide goes in, tide goes out. I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important to think in your own life, where do you feel like you have agency? And it's not just a question of where you have agency, it's where you feel you have agency. Because once you feel like you don't have the ability to change something, even if maybe you do, it's just really hard. That's what I think burnout can be, right? This feeling that you have no control. For the past couple of years now, the years have gone fast. I've been working at a startup, Earthly. It's been so amazing, and it's pretty small. It's like a true startup, right? We have less than 15 people. When I started, there was less than 5, 3 the exact day that I started, including the founder. But we've grown quickly, but we're still growing. But because it's so small and we're growing quickly, agency is not a problem. I get to take on projects and accomplish them, right? And if there's something in the way, then you overcome that and you have to, and that's just life at a startup. There's, if there's something to be done, there's nobody to do it but you get to do it, right? So it's there's nobody to take care of this specific issue, but you can take it on and you can accomplish it. And so the amount of agency you have is massive, and it's been amazing. I feel like when people struggle with bureaucracy or struggle with working at certain places, a lot of times it has to do with that. They might be mad about whatever, some ticketing system at work, or feeling like people don't value a certain area of the product, or that the incentives are lined up that lead to some unideal results. But really, part of it is just feeling like they don't have the ability to change these things. It's not just that these things are messed up, it's that they can't affect change. And that's hard. So yesterday, I guess I had a bad day. I'm working on a project. I guess I don't want to share too much, but I will share some. I'm working on a project, and it feels like its importance has been questioned. And while I was gone, while I was off breaking into garages, things changed. And then I had to come into a meeting, and things change in a startup. They change fast. You can't just sit around, right? But things changed on a project that I had been running. And I don't know, I was mad. I got called into a meeting, which sounds too formal, but we got together to discuss this, and it was clear that something, the discussion had happened while I wasn't there, and now I was being told that the priorities had changed. And I was mad, and all of a sudden, it just felt like this magical agency, my power to affect change that I love so much at this company, at least in terms of this project, had just disappeared, right? Because I could control the direction of the project, but now the project's importance was being called into question, and it just made me feel like, well, what does it matter now? Like, I can do this or do that, and I can find ways to make things better, but if the whole thing doesn't matter that much, then I don't know. And I'm sure that this will be straightened out. I'm not here to bitch about my work, maybe a little bit. But another way to think about this is ownership, right? When you own something and you feel like, it rises or falls based on your efforts, it feels great, right? Like, it's hard. You're taking on the responsibility of it. I didn't want to be responsible for getting my dad's house ready to sell and for selling it. But once I did take on that responsibility, and then I was able to get it to where it was ready to sell, and then I was able to get an offer for it. And by the way, I've never sold a house before, so I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like, yes, I have power here. I can do these things. Yeah, the message that I want to share is, like, when you feel like what you do in a certain domain doesn't matter, that's bad. Like, when you don't feel responsible for what's going on, for good or bad, like, that could be a problem. When I find myself talking to myself in my internal dialogue about fairness, like, oh, it's not fair that this project's priority has fallen, that doesn't have buy-in now. It's just a complicated way of feeling sorry for myself, and it doesn't help me get back this, like, ownership, this sense of control. Because really, I do still have agency. If this project isn't important anymore, then, I can work on the next thing. Or if I feel like people are incorrect, I can make the case. I don't just need to sit back and do nothing, right? If people are wrong, I can tell them. Or, like, if things are really bad, you can go up a level and say, like, okay, well, maybe I don't have agency in this role that I'm working in. Maybe I need to find a new role. Maybe I need to find a new place to work. That's not where I'm at right now, just to be clear. But I want to remind myself and you that when things seem out of control, that you can wrestle back control. Maybe not in everything in every circumstance, but, like, what is my ability to change things that I'm unhappy with, right? Don't just accept that you don't have the ability to change, right? I find that when I'm most unhappy is when I give up this agency, when I've decided that there's just nothing I can do, right? Tickets and Jira are managed that way, and that's just a thing, and I hate it, and I'll be frustrated, and I'll tell myself, oh, there's such a better way, and people are too stupid to appreciate it. That's useless, right? Like, I don't mean the Jira system is useless. It may in fact be, but it's not helpful for me to think this way. If I decide that no, this area is broken and no one values fixing it, and that frustrates me, like, well, what can I do, right? I'm happiest when I grab things, even like a small thing at work, and I make it the way I think it should be. When I feel like I can affect change, even if in the smallest way, right? It's a positive cycle. If I can accomplish something small, then it makes me feel like maybe I can accomplish something larger, and it's a feedback cycle. And then I feel like I can actually affect change upon the world. There is somebody out there who made a name for himself in the self-help world by telling people they should make their beds. Without commenting on him, I think that probably that is useful because it's if you're feeling helpless, it's something that you can do, right? You can affect the world. And then when you do that small change and you make it feel like you can do something bigger, and you get out of this like learned helplessness into this ownership mentality when you can change things, right? I wish I knew this 10 or 20 years ago, right? That you can get better at influencing the world by just like taking steps towards it, taking small steps. Like it is like literally a little bit just building up confidence when you're feeling beat down in your ability to change your circumstances. If you absolutely can't make a change, then that is what's left to you. You can change your circumstances. You can change your job or whatever, and it might be a slow process, but you can make a difference in your life. That is what I learned breaking and entering into my dad's garage. So this is, I believe, the 19th bonus episode. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you don't find it too preachy when I tell you how to think about the world, but I'm trying to put out some messages that I think would be super valuable to myself, my younger self, and even like a week ago self. Yeah. And until next time, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. The next episode coming up, super good. And I hope you liked the last one. And if you want to chat about things, join the Slack channel. It's a little bit easier to chat there than on Patreon. Thank you very much.